What's up, gang? So this is going to be totally different. This is going to be a cooking video. My friends who know me know that I cook a lot at home, and I'm a fairly good cook, and I oftentimes make up my own recipes and stuff. So what I'm making today is a ketogenic chili. This is a recipe that I made up. A lot of the recipes, or pretty much every recipe that I've seen for ketogenic chili, which is low-carb chili, the end result, they always turn out watery. And so I spent, a sleepless night, as I do, thinking about how am I going to create, or how can I create a ketogenic chili, which is a chili without any beans, that isn't watery, right? So what can I come up with that's low carb, that's going to thicken the chili up without negatively affecting it, without giving it any weird flavors. So a lot of times I make chili when I have leftover barbecue. So this is a beef porchetta that I made, which if you've never heard of that before, it's because I made that up too. Look up porchetta, Porchetta, and then imagine if you made that with beef, and that's what I did. So this is leftover. I had that on the smoker the other day. This is actually beef short rib wrapped around a ribeye. It was smoked with kind of your standard barbecue seasoning. I have a lot left, maybe 8 pounds left, so I got to do something with the leftovers. What I came up with as a thickener, remember when you guys make gumbo, you put okra and or filet into your gumbo, and if you didn't know the reason why, it's because those are natural thickeners. So in the South, in the summer, okra is available, and so they would use that because it's fresh, and in the winter, they would use filet, which is ground sassafras leaves, and they would use that as a thickener, and sometimes people use them both at the same time. But that's what I thought of because I make a pretty mean gumbo myself. If you wanted to know, gumbo is the Swahili word for okra. That's where that comes from. And it's a natural thickener. If you look at the back of the package, a half a cup of okra has 2 net carbs. So for you keto freaks, you paleo freaks, you low-carb, high-fat freaks, think about that if you want to make yourself some low-carb, high-fat, ketogenic chili. Pro tip, it works, it doesn't affect the flavor, and you can make a killer chili. So step 1, when you're cooking, mise en place. That's French for get your shit together. Like literally, it's French for all your stuff together. So mise en place is get everything that you need to make your dish out in front of you, so you're not, twirling around like a, whirling dervish while you're cooking. So in this case, we know I've got my leftover beef porchetta. I've got some thick sliced bacon from the butcher that I'm going to fry up in advance of everything. We're going to use the bacon grease to fry up everything else. The beef porchetta, the prime rib and short rib, it's going to be cut into fairly large chunks. So I got some ground beef and some ground lamb that I'm going to throw in there. It's going to act a little bit as filler so that you're not just eating big cubes of beef. We've got your standard peppers, but we're going to do them differently. We're going to barbecue our peppers in advance. Cooking is layers of flavor. What can you do with every ingredient to add more flavor? And we already have barbecue meat. We're going to barbecue our peppers. That's going to give them just a little bit more smoky flavor. I haven't found that barbecuing onions is good. It actually makes them rubbery unless you cook them all the way down. We're actually going to barbecue our tomatoes. I have stewing tomatoes. It's a good idea if you can use, fresh tomatoes. If you can't, get yourself some tomato paste, even some ketchup, or you can mix it up and mix tomato paste and ketchup, whatever you want to do. Chicken stock. So whenever you're cooking, don't add water. Add something that adds flavor to what you're going to cook, whether that be wine, beer, chicken stock, beef stock, what have you. Every ingredient should be adding something special to the mix. Obviously, we have okra. We have some chipotle pepper, some garlic powder, some chili powder, some black pepper, and I'm going to add some salt. I put it out. I don't know where I put it. So now we're off to the barbecue. All right, I got my handy-dandy Yoder pellet grill going. Notice that the heat deflector is removed, so I have direct fire. And all we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of brown on these vegetables, just to give them a little bit of smoke flavor, and add a little bit something special. Why add boring ingredients to your chili when you can make it fun? The first time I made barbecue chili, a friend of mine asked, what's the best recipe for making chili in a slow cooker? And I told him, well, there isn't one. You shouldn't make anything in a slow cooker. But if you have to, barbecue your ingredients first. What's wrong with slow cookers? You can't get chars, you can't sear, you can't brown anything. All they do is basically, frickin' boil food. And good chefs know that boiled food is boring. So, for my buddy who wanted to know how to make chili in a slow cooker, I said, okay, if you must, barbecue all your ingredients first. Get a char on them, get a brown on them, get some flavor on them. And I ended up making the recipe and I liked it so much, I'm like, well, I'm gonna do that from here on out. So I barbecue as many ingredients as I can because it just adds that, certain something. And especially for you guys that, you're gonna use slow cookers, give this a whirl. You're gonna have some extra flavors that you don't normally get when you cook at a slow cooker, and I think you'll enjoy it. All right, so we got the vegetables in the barbecue, browning, getting some flavor on them. You'll see here I have some cut up bacon. I keep my bacon in the freezer. It keeps longer. I hate to, buy bacon and have it go rotten. It does help when you go to cut it into small chunks. Actually, if you have it frozen, it works out better. I've got about 8 cloves of garlic here, 1 whole yellow onion. Notice this is a very rough chop. We're gonna stew this for like 4 or 5 hours. Everything's gonna cook down. I'm not even gonna chop up the garlic. I'm just, getting it small enough that it'll get some flavor on it. First things first, we have the onion on we have the oven on sort of medium high. We want to get this bacon cooking down, rendered, and then we're going to use the fat from the bacon to brown the onions and garlic, and nothing smells better in your house than bacon with onions and garlic. For those interested, this is my 1950 Wedgwood stove. I had it refurbished, and I love this thing. It's so simple. It's just fire, and that's it. You don't need any of this computerized stuff these days to make good food. So we're going to let the bacon cook down and render, and then after that we're going to add our onions and garlic to the mix and go from there. Okay, our bacon is nicely rendered. As you can see, it's brown, and you can see the crap stuck to the bottom of the pan. That's called fond. I believe that's another French word. And fond means flavor. All that crap stuck to the bottom of your pan, that's all gonna lift. Once we put our onions and garlic and vegetables in there, the onions and garlic, when they sweat, when they steam, they're gonna pull all that goodness from the bacon up off the pan, and we're adding more flavor. So going back to, you can't get a whole lot of flavor from a slow cooker. If you must use a slow cooker, try cooking some of these ingredients outside of the slow cooker first so you can get that flavor, then dump them into the slow cooker if that's what you want to do. But these are just tips, anytime you're making anything, whether you're making beef bourguignon or coq au vin or stew or chili, all these little things you can do add more flavor. They're going to make your dish unique, and it's going to make, it'll be something that you're proud of. So we're going to dump our vegetables in now. I'm actually up to 2 onions now, and we still have like 8 cloves of garlic. So we're going to dump those in. Everyone knows how to cook onions and garlic. No magic there. And we'll keep going. Okay, checking on the barbecue. You can see we have some color on our peppers. They got a little flame, they got a little smoke, so we're going to pull those off. Some people like to put peppers in a bag and let the skins steam, which helps remove them. I don't. I'm just going to chop them up and throw them in the pot. Same thing with the tomatoes. So I'll leave that one up to you guys. All right, we got the onions and garlic basically sweated out, right, when they start getting a little translucent. When we stir the pot, you see a lot of the brown stuff is no longer stuck to the bottom. It's being incorporated into the dish just like we want. We got some bacon, we got some onions and garlic. I hope I'm not being too loud for you guys. Now is a good time to add some salt. So flavor as you go, season as you go. There have been studies done showing how salt gets incorporated into dishes. And if you just add the salt at the end, it actually can give you a lot stronger taste. Whereas if you flavor and salt and season as you go, everything gets incorporated better. And again, every little step of the way, if you can add a little bit of flavor, a little depth, a little character, you're just going to be so much happier at the end. You're going to impress your friends and family, maybe even your mother-in-law if you're lucky. All right, so we chopped up some of the peppers. They're hot, so be careful when you do this. I try not to even touch them with my bare hand. It's a rough chop on purpose, sort of, because we're gonna stew this for so long, right? So this is gonna stew for a good, 4 or 5 hours. Those peppers are, basically gonna disappear. So going back earlier where I said I didn't take the skins off or anything, this is just all gonna cook down. It's just gonna be flavor and liquid and meat by the time we're done. Remembering we're making a ketogenic chili, so they ain't gonna be no beans. It's all about meat, and these vegetables, they're all super low carb vegetables too, right? So for you dudes and girls, gals, dudettes, whatever, tracking your net carbs, this is a good low net carb recipe. So onward and upward. All right, so we got all of our vegetables added. They're stewing now. I've got the oven basically on a simmer. So you can see we've got, I didn't even count how many tomatoes. I'm not going to give you guys any exact, measurements on anything. I usually cook just by flavor. I'm going to give you a good outline on what to do. But, anytime you're cooking, taste, right? So be tasting for salt, pepper, any kind of seasoning as you go, right? You never start off with exact measurements. I kind of work it out as I go. So I'll give you, some rough idea of what to do, but some of this you're going to have to use some of your artistic license. So anyway, we got all of our vegetables in there. It needs some liquid, so we're going to add chicken stock. You could maybe add beef stock. I don't know if it would end up too strong. Chicken stock is pretty mild, so I like to use that for chili. You don't want to add too much liquid, right? Because we don't want our chili to be overly liquid. We're gonna be, attempting to make this as thick as we can, being a ketogenic chili. So just, add as you go. You can add, half hour later should you need to. We've added a little bit of salt already. I'm probably gonna start adding chili powder in a bit. I don't have that bottle open yet, and I'm working with one hand. So we're gonna add that in a little bit. And then I'm gonna fry up the ground beef separately. If you're just using, one meat and you've got barbecued meat, you won't need to do this. But I'm gonna fry up some ground beef on my cast iron. We're gonna add that once it's good and brown, and we'll keep going. Okay, we got our ground beef going. Actually, I have beef and ground lamb, just cause I thought I'd try it. It's chili, it's hard to screw it up. You guys can do whatever you want. If you want to add buffalo, lamb, veal, pork sausage, I've added leftover chicken, whatever you want to do. It's chili, you're not going to screw it up. So we got that going. Notice you haven't seen me dump out any fat. When we fried the bacon, we kept the fat. When we fry this meat, we're going to keep the fat. This is ketogenic chili, fat is our friend. We're starting to add seasoning to the main pot. So I've already added a little bit of chili powder, maybe a teaspoon and a half. Just added some garlic powder. Yes, we already have 8 cloves of garlic in there, and I'm adding garlic powder just cause. It's going to be good. You can see everything's starting to cook down. We got some really pretty colors. This is actually a healthy recipe. It's gonna have a good amount of fat in it, but if you're ketogenic, fat is your friend. If you guys want to try and make this recipe low fat, you can, in which case, dump out the oils from the meats. Maybe don't save the oil from the bacon. If you just want to be low carb and not super high fat, you can do that. But because, I'm making this keto, we're keeping all the fat. So there you go. All right, so we got the ground beef and the ground lamb working their way through, and I've now cubed a whole bunch of the beef. So remember, I have prime rib on the inside and short rib on the outside. So I cubed a whole bunch of this into like 3/4 inch chunks. You can do whatever you want. You can go a little bigger, you can go a little smaller, you can finely dice it. we're going to cook this so long that really this stuff is going to fall apart. So we're going to add this to the pot. When the ground beef is done, we're going to add that to the pot. There's so much here that I can't even pick it all up, so I'll have to come back and show you later. Okay, so we have a couple pounds of the beef that I cubed, put in the pot. We have 2 pounds of the ground beef and lamb mix that we're going to add to the pot. Again, guys, I'm not giving you exact measurements because I don't have exact measurements. I just kind of go with the flow, and I taste it as I go, right? So you want to be seasoning and tasting while you cook. But anyway, get this all incorporated. We've already added some chili powder, maybe a couple tablespoons. I'm going to add a bit more, and you just keep adding as you go to where you get the flavor you want. Couple bay leaves, right? So this is going to be a large pot, so 1.5, 2 bay leaves is suggested. You know, add half teaspoon of salt, Worcestershire. Add a tablespoon or so of that, and just mix it up. This dish is yours. You're the artist, so have fun with it. Cooking is the combination of art and science, so you make it what you want it to be, and just have fun along the way. If you just follow kind of the outline of this recipe, I think you're going to end up happy with the end result. But you could do whatever you want. I've added cubed pork, pork steaks, chicken, all sorts of things in the past. If you're trying to stay keto, just make sure that you stick with low-carb veggies. Peppers, onions, okra, those are all low-carb. And away we go. So the chili's been simmering for the last maybe 3 hours. You can see it's cooked down nicely. So at this point we have, you know, a few pounds of barbecued short rib and prime rib, a couple pounds of ground beef, and a pound of ground lamb. All the vegetables are in there. I added the whole bag of okra. You can see the peppers have mostly disappeared. There's like one chunk there, but you know, for the most part, this is the consistency of chili that you want. So I've added a whole bag of okra, and I'm going to let this simmer for probably 1 more hour. And if I need to, I may add a couple teaspoons of filet, which is also ground sassafras leaves. And with that, I think we'll have a nice, really thick chili. I've been tasting it as we go. At this point, I've used a whole container of chili powder, a couple bay leaves. I did add about 2 teaspoons of tomato paste just because I wasn't getting the depth of color that I wanted. So, you know, just when you're cooking, taste and season as you go until you get it exactly the way you want. This should be ready to eat in an hour, and I'll bring you back then and show you the finished result. And that's it, guys. So chili's now been simmering for 4 hours. You can see everything is cooked down. Can you believe that there's a whole bag of okra in there? I told you it'd disappear. Most of the vegetables have disappeared. The okra doesn't do anything to the flavor. The only thing is you'll find seeds in the chili, so you might get a little crunchiness. It's nothing bad, it's just the seeds don't totally disappear. And you can tell that it looks, you know, totally edible, right? So this is actually one of my favorite chili recipes. I don't do beans anymore just because I'm not a big carb guy. But for those of you that want to do a ketogenic or a low carb chili, check this out. So the cooking techniques, they're old school cooking techniques, just for a different recipe, right? So these thickeners, the gumbo and filet thickeners, are really common in gumbo, and they don't add any flavor. So I figured just, you know, why not use them in chili? And the results are great. I'm gonna have chili with my wife and daughter tonight. I did add, as you can see, almost a half a container of chipotle peppers. And it adds a really good flavor and a little bit of zest. Pro tip, if you're gonna share your chili with your wife and daughter, make sure that you give them some sour cream to mix in, because if it's too spicy for them, add sour cream and it'll kick it down and they won't even notice it. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think of my ketogenic chili recipe if you have any questions. And, if you try anything different or unique, post up. I want to see what you guys think. All right, take care.